Hey guys, welcome back to another Battle Cats video. Today I will be re-ranking all of the Uber Super Rares and Legend Rares in Battle Cats as of version 11.2. I know the last time I did this it did not have commentary and I was not able to rank a few of the Ubers. So I'll go through and do them all again and provide some in-depth explanation because there's 238 Ubers and Legends I have to rank right now and make this video not 3 hours long. So Nurse Cat, I mean, it's a decent unit, but nowadays it's fallen off because this generalist usage isn't really that great, especially in endgame. Also, for the methodology I'll be using, it's going to be based on how good their niche is, and if they're generalist, how good they are in endgame, as well as if their niche is unique, and if it's replaceable or not. So the tiers I have are SSS, SS, S, A, B, C, D, and unknown. These are for PC Ubers and Ubers that are just not rankable because they're not in the main game or meme units. So Air, it's actually pretty good now with its weakened talents, which provide really nice weakened aliens. Barrier Breaker and Resist versus aliens, good LD attacker. KG, I'd go with S tier, really good tank, also great damage dealer, 12k DPS when strengthened. Tropical Kalisa, I'd go with A tier for this one. It's a great unit, especially against Reds, which it has massive damage against, and it has stats near pre-true form of Kalisa. Sayaka Miki from the Madoka Collab, I'd go with C tier. It's a okay generalist. You'll really only find use for it in the Madoka Collab stages. Okay, Shiro, the newest War God. I'd go C tier. It's a bad Uber, but I'm not putting in D tier simply because there's not that many anti-Akus, and it has like mediocre generalist stats. It has massive damage against Akus and Black. Okay, Rider, B tier. It's a pretty good unit. It has terrible generalist stats, but it has super quick cooldown at 71 seconds, and guaranteed freeze against Angels. Kagamine Rin Len, C tier. It's a pretty, actually, yeah, C tier. It's a pretty bad generalist, bad niche, just super replaceable. One of the Ubers from the Princess Karihime collab, D tier. Blanca, really good unit, great rusher, massive damage against aliens, a ton of knockbacks. Frosty Kai, C tier. It's not that great, especially as a tank, which is its only job because it has really low HP and it resists aliens and angels, and those types of enemies are just not good to tank, especially for frontline tankers. Akane Tendo, just a solid generalist Uber with savage blows. Balrog from the Street Fighter collab, C tier. I mean, it's usable at best, especially against its traits, but it's just not that great. Springtime Kenshin, I think this is actually slightly underrated. It is strong against Angel, 6k DPS. It's actually a not that bad generalist, and it has pretty good health and rapid attacks. Shishilan, A tier for me. Even though it falls off some in endgame, it still has really high stats with 9k DPS when strengthened, 100 knockbacks, and 51k HP. Twin Stars, another one of my favorite units, B tier, massive damage against alien and Black, super high DPS, reaches near 30k DPS against its traits. Volta, I'll go B tier. It's a bad generalist, but it's really good against aliens, which it has freeze and resist against. Copper Mine, Holy Copper Mine, it's just D tier, sucks. Skull Rider Vars, it's a bad generalist, has a bad niche. Chocolate ID, A tier, good sniper. It's just a nerfed version of Aphrodite with massive damage to red and black enemies. Garu, I'd go with S tier. No, A tier. It's a good Uber, but one of the worst Fest exclusives because it's a tank, but it has like no immunities and it has super slow speed and sluggish attacks. Cornelia, easy D tier, one of the worst Ubers in the game. Luflan, I would say A tier, but a high A tier. I'm not ranking by tier, but it would definitely be borderline S tier. It's kind of like Balrog, but with super high range, terrible survivability, even though it has super high range, so it actually isn't that bad, not gonna lie. But it's just super high DPS nuker with single target. Give a unit 0-0, solid B tier. It's a super good anti-wave Uber, and that's just about it. It has wave blocker. This would be Tokyo Miku, which is a super good Uber. Basically just a better version of Viva Unit 00. D'Artagnan, another S tier Uber, massive damage against traded, rusher. Okay, our first legendary that we'll be ranking, I'll put it in B tier. That's Mighty Crystal Moo. It has insane resist and massive insane damage and resist against zombies. And has wave blocker, but that's kind of useless, but it's just a super good unit, especially against zombies. It pretty much annihilates them. Bora, same abilities as Volta, just I think a slightly better generalist because it has strengthened with its talents and massive damage against aliens. Bebe from the Madoka Collab, solid A tier for me. It's actually a great generalist, even though it has slightly low DPS. It has high range and a good cooldown at 91 seconds. Guaranteed weaken to aliens with pretty much perma weaken effect, and it has a ton of knockbacks, which gives it great survivability. Oda, this would be a C tier for me, even though it has guaranteed freeze against zombies. It really is just not usable outside of early ITF, simply because it has terrible survivability and gets completely outclassed by Bomber Cat. Gao, S tier, 5k DPS, really good survivability, just a solid Uber with strong against traded, giving it great health and DPS. Gaia, this would go to S tier for me. Super high DPS at 28k against traded, along with terrible survivability, huge blind spot, and multi-hit, but it's still super good simply because that DPS is just unbeatable. Lancer, just a solid generalist with barrier breaker. Sega, D tier. Seashore Kai, C tier simply because its resist against Black and Zombie can sometimes be used, unlike its other variant, Frosty Kai. Sweet Love Mikako, I'd say B tier, borderline C tier. It's a bad generalist, but it has high HP, 2 knockbacks, and its first form is really the only useful one. Freeze against traded, which there are very little amounts of trade-less Ubers, except for Epic Fest exclusives, and that alone can make it super worth getting. Mighty Bomber, actually a pretty decent generalist with its strengthened talents, and it has a knockback, guaranteed knockback against zombies with Zombie Killer. Sachiel, D tier. Wyvern, D tier. Dalism, D tier. Kyoko Sakura, C tier. It's actually pretty good against Reds, just Reds are kind of power creeped, and it's a half decent generalist. Yuki, C tier, it's okay against its traits, but that's pretty much it. It has bad generalist stats. Ruri, I'd go with B tier because it's actually a pretty good tank, even though it has single target, and its talents make it resistant to Relic with Curse Immune, which can make it slightly relevant in endgame, especially against Dogumaru 3-star and 2-star. Himiyori, good generalist, slow against angels, just a solid unit. Sunshine Kaguya, comparable to Nerve Moon, one of the worst Ubers out there. Hayabusa, I'd go with a higher B tier. Its first form is the best anti-metal in the game, in my opinion, with 30% crit chance and really good crit damage and DPS. Second form is good against aliens with knockback and slow, which might spell out Misley Syndrome, but it's actually pretty good because it has LD and can hit backliners, so it's not gonna affect you that much. And true form seen against zombies, same thing. It has Z-kill. It's just a solid Uber throughout all parts of the game. Zeus, I really like Zeus. 6k DPS, high health with like 80k, resist against angels, which helps in no plan A, and yeah, just a solid Uber. The only thing that's bad about it is its survivability is kind of low, but I still think it's slightly underrated. Musashi Miyamoto, A tier, basically destroys blacks even though it has single target. Mersha, D tier, just really bad. Little Valkyrie, A tier, it's a good unit. It has pretty much every single immunity in the game, along with Z-kill and barrier breaker. It just has really low survivability and no backswing, which can hurt at times. Cat Clan Heroes, C tier, is just a bad unit, even with its weaken against 4 traits, and the DPS is just too low and bad survivability. Normal Kaguya, B tier, because its first form has It has rapid attacks and slow versus angels and metals, which can be useful if you don't have Sanzo, and carries metal CC, especially because it has area attack. Paladin, C tier, even though it's a great anti-metal, it still can be outclassed by Catasaurus at times. Kachi C tier, just generally outclassable, even though I think it's slightly underrated. After its cost down talent, it kind of resembles Momotaro, but instead of freeze, weaken. It just has, if its cost was just like 500 or 600 lower, it would have been seen as a way better unit, but it's just too expensive, and yeah, it's just not that great. Windy, solid Uber, A tier for me. Massive damage against floating, decent generalist, strengthen. Zero, D tier. Archer, Gilgamesh. I'd go with B tier. It's a good unit, pretty solid. It has lower standing range, but it has super high DPS and a lot of Pierce. Shampoo, I'd go with B tier. It's a solid generalist with mini waves, has around 6k DPS, and so it's just an all-around good unit. Squirt Gun Saki, I'd put it in B tier simply because it can be usable against its traits, and it's just a copy-paste version of Saki first and second form with different target traits. Ku, I'd say it's a pretty bad unit. It just attack rate's way too long, force link's way too long, and it's really only usable against like Hanya and Queen, the Relic Queen Bee Advents. Another Yuki, copy paste, different target trait. Normal Mikako, I'd put this one in A tier. It's a really good anti-alien with its first form having resist, being a backliner tank, which can be useful against some Cleveland stages, but not that great. Second form is knockback and weaken, you'll never use this form. Third form has massive damage and guaranteed slow, along with its super high health and good survivability, which makes it one of the best anti-aliens in the game. Kubalan, I'd give it C tier simply because its true form can be very slightly useful against metals. If there's just a lot of metals and you need something, just go through and clear all of them. And its its second form has double knockback because of its wave. First Love Mersha, D tier. Other Karahimes, D tier. Okay, more. What is this? Joyful. This is the other nurse variant. Yuletide Nurse. Even with this true form good against Aku, it's still just not that great of a unit because it doesn't have shield pierce, and that's the main thing you need against Aku. Shaman Khan, B tier. Actually a pretty good generalist with its LD and not procs against traded, but it's not something you'd use once you get like greater and better Ubers. Copper Mine, D tier. Freeze against floating, just Sanso outclasses it, and it's a bad generalist. Megadora, I actually think this is slightly overrated. It has super high cost, super long cooldown, and its general stats just aren't that great, and knockback and slow versus floating is just not really the best TC, especially whenever you have Sanso who can do that better. NK, one of my favorite legendaries. It just looks so cool and just annihilates angels with its insane damage and resist. It's a decent Uber with its anti-wave capabilities. I just think that once you get better units, it kind of gets outclassed, especially with Octopus Cat. And okay, we have Valkyrie Dark. I actually have this along with a lot of the Ubers on here. It's where did I put it? It's a solid unit, and it's just a great Uber in general, along with all of its abilities, which make it great. But instead of the normal Valkyrie, it doesn't have what is it called? Any of the abilities it has. All it has is wave, immune, and wave attacks. So instead of having 12k DPS, it has 6k DPS and a wave, which gives it 12k DPS because of the wave. And even though it has better reach, I just prefer the first Valkyrie because Barrier Breaker, Z Killer, and all the immunities just make it a lot better to use. But it's still a great unit. Rikako from the... Actually, I don't know. I'm going to move on and then come back to it. This is Zeus, the other Zeus variant. It's like Super Zeus from the Bikuriman collab. It's just not that great. It's like a knockoff Mitama. It just doesn't work, though. Kalisa, A tier. Great rusher, massive damage against angels. Wow, we have a lot of Ubers to go. Okay, EV unit 0-0. This is a pretty good unit, especially against its target. No, this is 0-8. It's a great unit, especially against its target trait being floating, and it having random debuffs can sometimes hurt, but it's a good LD generalist. Reika, good unit, massive damage against aliens and zombies. Ultraland, kinda useless. Mobius, massive damage knockback against reds. Kamakura variant, just bad uber, not good generalist. Homura, freeze versus black, not that great of a generalist. Ray, good against his target trait of floating, but still not the best anti-floating uber because of its high speed. Balrog variant, wait, is this the Balrog variant or Balrog? Here, wait, let me look. Because I don't want to mess this up because they're both such different ubers. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I think this is the seasonal variant. Wait, let me look. Yeah, no, that's normal Balrog. Okay, so normal Balrog is a god tier unit, especially for endgame. Easy S tier for me, although not top 10 ubers because it's situational and isn't really useful outside of endgame and advents. White Rabbit, C tier, just not that great of a unit. Kahime, C tier, replaceable. Momoko, B tier, it has a super huge wave, 3-hit multi-attack, but super high DPS. And freeze versus, I think, red, black, angel for 2 seconds, and it happens on the wave, which makes it really good, especially because of its freeze. Orochimaru, one of the best tanks out there. Resist against black and angel. Quill, just a bad unit. Saber, the best anti-floating in my opinion. Rapid attacks with massive damage and LD against floating. Okay, Jian, I'd say pretty good legend rare, but like it's not the best unit in the game. It has 4k DPS but insane damage to red and floating, and it's just like I'd say a more situational version of the Valkyries because it is kind of suicidal at times. Praise Karihime. Hades, B tier, solid tank, even though it has no real special targets and has not nuclear base attacks and super low DPS for a tank. Shadow Gao, this is S tier for me. He's arguably the best anti-traitless in the game. Massive damage against traitless, super high DPS, great generalist. Wow, that's still a lot of ubers. Thundia, copy paste Wendy, give it red instead. Aether, pretty good anti-zombie, it just has slightly low range. Dark Garu, I would actually put this one above normal Garu, even though it has a worse target trait. It has Strengthen, which gives it like, I think 12 or 18k DPS, I don't remember exactly, and has many waves. Bunny and Canard, good unit, especially against his target, or only against his target traits. I actually cannot name the super, so I'll put it in on note. I might come back to it though. Actually, let me think about this one. No, wait a second. Rokako, good unit, especially against his target traits with strong and floating. Orbital Annihilator, Ragnarok, great unit against traded, super high DPS. Warlock and Pierre, A tier, super good against his target traits being Angel, Alien, and Floating, especially in its true form against Alien with 20k DPS. E is the newest, what is it called? Uberfest exclusive. I would give this would be our first SS tier Uber. I think it's better than all these Ubers it has. It's kind of like D'Artagnan, slightly lower range and multi-hit, but I think it's better simply because of its super high DPS and strengthen. Okay. This is Ice. Is it Ice or is it Lilith? I don't know. I'll come back to it. Okay, Heavy Jack. B tier, super good against Aku. Not that great against anything else. Chun-Li, pretty good unit, especially as a rusher, but that's about it. Pai Pai, super good against reds, but that's pretty much all it has to offer. More Copper Mine variants. Tyrant, okay. In my opinion, the best legend rare, I'd give it S tier. It has super good procs against traded and It also has super high DPS and 551 range. Siege, not that great of a unit. It just doesn't work. LD and zombies. Sakura, good against metal, but that's all it has to offer. Huge Hermit, worst tuber in the game. Moose, good sniper, low A tier. Shinji, Cats in the Cradle, but in my opinion slightly worse, simply because it has shorter attack rate and less nuker based attacks. Hellward Nema, bad unit, especially even though it's a wave specialist, it doesn't work against waves. Wave Rider Coup. This one's actually, I think it's Ren. No, it's one of the Street Fighters, but this is one of the better ones. It's a good generalist. I don't remember the name, but it's kind of similar to Zeus. Jizo, another S tier Uber. I think it's dropped down from SS simply because the stages found in Uncanny Legends are less spammy, and even the Black and Angel stages, they have enemies that will curse you, and the Jizos don't do 6k DPS per. And even though its evolve form is great, I still think it's not SS tier great. Princess, I'd put it similar to Tyrant, but it has mini waves and doesn't target all traits, so A. Gravici, I think it's slightly underrated. It's a pretty good anti-relic and good anti-zombie, especially with its waves freezing. It's a good unit. Lilith, pure definition of just underpowered, not enough DPS, range, and health. Cats in the Cradle, Shinji, but better, high A tier. Snow Angel, Twin Stars, B tier similar to Twin Stars, but against Angel and Floating. Dr. Heaven, great legendary, especially against Alien and Black. Gladios, C tier, bad unit. Kai, I want to put it in S tier, but it's a high A tier, especially with this resist against floating, and now has 100% shield pierce against Aku with talents. Skull Rider Vars, bad unit. Wait, no. Yeah, that's Skull Rider Vars. Wait a second. Just want to make sure I haven't put normal Vars down here, because he's pretty good. Okay. E Honda, terrible unit. Kamakura, pretty decent, but it's fallen off lately as a generalist. Dundia, pretty good unit. I want to say slightly. Hey, wait a second, is this Dundia or Spooky? Oh, that's Spooky Dundia. Okay, yeah, she sucks. Gothic Mitama, A tier, super good against traitless, arguably the best anti-traitless because of its super good weaken and slow and resist. Raiden, pretty good generalist, pretty good against reds. Wait, where does it go? That should be in B tier. Amaterasu, one of the best Ubers in the game in my opinion. SS tier. It's 14k DPS against traded, Survivor, Barrier Breaker, and Zombie Killer, and it's just a super good unit, and it also doesn't have that bad cost and recharge. Asaluga, it's okay at best with its slow effects. Ramiel, C tier, may be usable against floating in early game, but that's it. Gravolo, I'd say A tier. It's a great unit in my opinion, great tank against aliens, and super good even going into endgame. I used it against Dogyumaru whenever I fought it. Midsummer Rabbit, D tier. Okay, Ken Rangers. I'd give it a solid A tier. It's just a great unit and works really well against its target traits. And that'll be it for the first part of this video. I'm gonna upload these in 2 parts because it is super long and just has just a ton of Ubers. So thank you so much for watching and have a nice day.